Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're super excited to have you join us today. And today we have a really great panel lined up about just hiring smarter and trying to build a strong team for your small business. But really quick, if you want to pop in the chat, how do you feel about hiring right now? If you're ready to build your dream team, just put an A in the chat. If you're feeling overwhelmed, and just put B. And then if you're like, I just wish someone could do it for me or send me the perfect employee, just put C. We'd love to know how you're feeling about hiring. Um, but
Okay,
first I want to welcome back, Adam.
thank you.
First, I like to just give a big thank you to our featured sponsor, which is Nebraska Department of Economic Development. They do play a vital role in growing and strengthening our communities across the state. And so we're really grateful for their partnership and their commitment to Nebraska and just continuing to make it a strong state. And then I'd like to just thank our featured member, Sweet Things by Marcy. She's been a member since 2023. She's right out of Lincoln, and she makes all this yummy food, dessert. She's right in the culinary kitchen, right by the Lincoln Community Foundation. And so we just really wanted to feature her and thank her for allowing Grow Nebraska to visit when we were in Lincoln recently. And so we're glad to have her as part of our family here. And then quickly, I just love to make sure if you're ever interested in Grow Nebraska, myself and then Cami, we would love to set up a call and just go through the ways that we could partner with your business. We do love to tailor our support specifically to your business. And so feel free to just set up a call with us. Feel free to email us, just even give us a call. We want to talk to you and see how we can partner with your business and helping it grow. But I want to get to our webinar. I'm super excited about it. And today we have Michelle with Associated Staffing and then Adam with Red Thread. And so I am going to get us going here. And so first, I'd love to have Adam and Michelle introduce themselves and just kind of Adam, if you wanted to maybe start with just with your company, what role did hiring the right people have to play in your growth in your intro? And then Michelle, what's been like a shift you've seen in the 17 years that you've been in staffing in like a small business's approach to hiring?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
So, hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I'm Adam, the founder and CEO of Red Thread. I started this company back in 2014 with just kind of the being the catch-all individual. So I did. We're a creative advertising agency, so it was a mix of me doing the design work, copywriting work, project management work, client relationship work, um, really the new business work. I mean, everything. And when I realized that I had some clients who were like, I love your work, Adam, but we'd like to get it within once, we'd like to get new work more than once a month because I didn't have enough time. I'm like, okay, how do I scale my abilities and how do I hire people better than me? So I think my first hire I ever made was a project manager that I paid minimum wage and said, you get 5 hours a week. That's all I can afford at this current juncture. And when I realized how much more organized and more sophisticated she made me and my company, I said, wow, maybe there's something to this because my skill set isn't in project management. It's not necessarily focused on deadlines and timelines. So from there, we continue to scale, and I'm sure there's more questions along the way, Tanya. But right now, we're a team of about 31 here in downtown Lincoln, Nebraska, and hiring's been the reason why we've been successful and doing it the right way.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And Michelle, if you want to pop in there.
Hi, I am Paul Leahy. I'm the Senior Operations Manager for Associated Staffing. I have been with Associated a little over about 6 years. I've been in staffing for over 20 years, and then before that I was doing managing restaurants, bars, things like that. So I've been doing hiring in the HR field for close to 30 some years. So got quite a lot of experience in it, and just transitioned over into staffing, which I've been doing again over the last over 20 years. Associated staffing has been open. We are at our 30-year anniversary this year, so I'm pretty excited to work for a company that continues to grow, and the things that we do and how we partner with the community and our clients. It's a pretty amazing company. And we have offices in Kearney, Hastings, Grand Island, Omaha, Columbus, and we just have a wide variety of fields that we fill, from production managers to nurses to cashiers to paras, teachers, ag related. So we kind of are all over the place in hiring. And for the question that you asked me of the shifts that I have seen, over the years I've been in staffing, it has been really a kind of a wild ride in staffing, especially since COVID hit. Before COVID, it was pretty, you had to have good work history and longevity, and the good work ethic was really, really what people wanted. And then COVID hit, and then it just kind of changed everything, where there was nobody to work. People were working remotely. People were getting laid off. It was a really fascinating and then also difficult time, especially in the staffing and then for people hiring. But what we learned with that, then it kind of shifted where companies had to change how they thought in hiring. The longevity of jobs, we had to set that aside. We had to look at different ways to get people in because people they kind of were job jumping, and companies were outbidding each other just to try to get that employee to come. So someone would start at a job, and then within a month they would leave and go to another company because someone offered them more money because it was so tight on finding people. The last year or so, it's kind of calmed down a little bit to where we're able to go back where work ethic is more, it's back to where people are looking at the work ethic, the longevity. They're looking, they want people with no attendance issues. And so we're kind of seeing it balance out, but it has really changed a lot. And it's been difficult to be in HR. We've had a lot of companies where the HR is like, wow, it's really changed a lot. And then with what we have out there that are looking for work, everything has kind of changed. But again, it's started to balance out a little bit, and getting back to where, companies are really looking for more of the, people come in that are genuine, that really have that work ethic, that want to go to work every day. And, and the companies are also trying to work with them on making it a good culture for the people so that they want to stay and so on. So.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, you've probably seen a lot of different shifts in the hiring, and so thank you so much for sharing that. Just a quick plug, if you guys have questions for Adam and Michelle, feel free to pop them in the chat. We will get them answered. We'd love to hear your specific questions if you have any specifics about any hiring questions. But while we're still waiting for some questions, Adam, I know it sounds like you hired pretty right off the bat when someone was interested, but
Yeah.
maybe when you were deciding to keep hiring more, did you ever wait maybe a little too long, or were you kind of on top of it with like as you scaled, you felt like you weren't overwhelmed where you're like, we need someone now?
Yeah, I think what we've approached it as a small business is initially we started off by just like gut feeling, which is generally a really bad plan. Just by being like, yeah, I'm feeling busy, we should go higher, but I didn't realize what that meant to the expenses, bottom line, client work completion, all that stuff, because it's either too soon or too late. And so what we really tried to get into was more data-driven hiring decisions. And what we did to get there was there's a really awesome program, and I think it's applicable to other businesses than just marketing, called Harvest. It's the URL is getharvest.com, and we were using it for probably, oh geez, probably close to 8 to 9 years now. And what it does, it just allows us to like plug in the capacity of the work that we need to complete, like the amount of hours we've estimated for it to take, which has an associated price point assigned to it. And so if we have, I'm just using arbitrary numbers, if we have 1,000 hours of work to be completed within the next like 2 weeks, and our team's capacity based upon their 40-hour work week is 940 hours, right? It's the question is, can we push stuff out to make sure we can get the capacity where it needs to be, or do we need to look long term and say, oh, geez, well, our pipeline is probably 1,000 hours of work for the next 6 months. We should probably make an intentional hire to kind of fill some of that void. So instead of having kind of Adam's opinion gut reaction as to we're feeling really busy right now, we're just like, hey, let's let the numbers tell us when to pull the trigger and when not to pull the trigger.
Yeah, that's good. You're using the data to make that call.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then Michelle, how would you like advise small business clients that are unsure if it's maybe too early to bring someone on for their business?
Well, I would always recommend, and trends that I've seen over the years, always want to hire if you know that the trend, your business is going to pick up and you are foreseeing like you're going to have a bunch of orders, you got a lot of clients coming in, you always want to prepare. And hiring early is something that I recommend, and that we always recommend our clients, because when you wait, and then all of a sudden you're slammed and you got all these orders and you are not able to keep up, that's when you kind of make hiring mistakes. That's when you're just hiring anybody that walks in the door and you're not finding the right fit for your company. You're getting overwhelmed. You're getting burned out. You're just not making the right hiring decision. So we always tell people, hire early, be prepared, get the right person in, get the right training done for them, get them into your culture so that you know that they're a good fit. And that's what we encourage people. And with what we do for business, that's where companies reach out to us. They're like, hey, we're going to have this influx coming. We're going to have all these orders coming in. It's our busy season, so we're looking to add one person, 10 people, whatever the case may be. Well, we will start, recruiting for that, screening, get in the right candidates so they're in there, they get to interview, they get to meet with all the team, and then they start the training so that they're making sure that they're the right fit. So before they're right there in their busy season, that they're not overwhelmed, and and it just causes a mess. So we definitely encourage people to hire early and be prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. Looks like we do have some audience questions coming in. So the first one is from Nicole. She is asking, what is the first official position that you guys would suggest to hire for a training company?
Michelle, you want to take that one?
I would say, obviously, you need a training coordinator. You need someone that can do the onboarding, get the training program up and running, do the onboarding with the applicants and the employees, get the culture set, and have that. So definitely, I would say a training coordinator. That would be what I would suggest. Again, because they're going to be in charge of onboarding those candidates, the employees, and they're going to be setting them up for success. And really, when you hire someone, the first impression that employee gets, that's how it's going to set if they're going to stay or if they're going to leave. Are they going to be happy? And if you hire someone and you're not organized and you're not prepared, more likely that employee's not going to stay long. They're not going to get invested in your company. They're going to be looking because they feel it's already disorganized. They don't know what they're doing. The culture is kind of crazy. So definitely, going off just that basic question, training company, I would definitely say, you need a training coordinator. You need someone that's going to handle all the onboarding and getting that person in and getting them where they need to be.
I just my quick 2 cents on that is, and this is Nicole's question. I would always say like, like look at the needs of like kind of where the business is going to like what does the business need to succeed and grow, right? If your goal is growth, does growth come from sales? Does growth come from scaling current relationships? Does growth come from better organization, better products, better services? So I think the coolest part about my job is I get to sit in anywhere from like 4 to 8 different boardrooms per day, usually on a day-to-day basis. I've seen it all. And I've really found most companies that have too many sales aren't struggling compared to most companies that are just looking for sales. And obviously, you need to service these clients that you're offering solutions to. But really, if you're able to scale business development, that's always generally a good problem to have. And then when you have cash and opportunities, then you can kind of distribute from there. But obviously that's a more intricate answer, and I think there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. So I don't think there's any wrong answer besides if you can help scale yourself and help scale the business, it's probably a good place to start.
Perfect. Thank you guys. Um, we Jamie has a kind of a just it looks like a situation. So she just is looking for advice on hiring high school graduates. They don't seem to get the importance of communicating. For example, someone said, I lost my phone for 5 days, and that just doesn't cut it. So she owns a restaurant and coffee shop. Would you guys have any advice for her?
You know, I see that a lot. Work with a lot of the area schools and the colleges, and we try to get them into the work field, and we are seeing that. It just um, I don't know why, but we do see a lot of it as the communication and how do I want to say it, the need for to be there and to hurry up to get this done and be attentive is not there in a lot of people. So with what we do when we bring these people in, a lot of our clients are like, we just don't have time to go through and screen them and talk to them about how important it is. So that's what my recruiters do. They will, listen here when you for this company, you got to make sure if you're on call, like if you're in sales or if you're a pair or whatever the position is, how important communication is and how it can affect their staying there. But yeah, we do see that a lot, and it's hard. It's hard to fix. It's hard to handle that problem. And again, what we do is we have to have that frank conversation and just tell them how it is. Like, this is how the world works. This is how it is to get a job. And it's really important that you follow through. And I know that's not an answer, but we're seeing that daily. It's a hard thing.
I was just gonna say too, Jamie, I'm not sure where your restaurant slash coffee shop is, but obviously, some Nebraska towns are obviously challenged with just staffing. I think one of the craziest articles that came out, I think even the last 5 years ago, is like Nebraska hit the lowest unemployment rate ever. And like of like any state at any point in time since I started measuring it, I'll see if I can find the article. It's right around like the COVID hiring sprint. But I mean, I don't think that's truly changed because I think the hiring is obviously a smaller pool compared to some potentially more metropolitan states. No, you said you're in Western Nebraska. All right, so we got a finite group to pick from, and so one of the things I would advise you to do is one of the things we've done before is just give someone like a mini task before you hire them, right? It doesn't have to be like you have to go move mountains, but something like um, text me by 6 p.m. today with your favorite coffee drink, right? Like leave the interview and be like, you have to do this small follow-up task. And usually somebody who's has enough critical thinking and people skills can say, hey, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate the interview. My favorite coffee drink is a caramel latte. Just want to see how the next steps are going. Like just something that says, hey, I have the ability to be somewhat reliable and can think critically about what's my task ahead. We've done that in the advertising world with just like, hey, one of our clients that we work with is Aurora Co-op. I don't know if I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of that. Um, One of the projects we had for them is they sell uh, natural gas. And one of the biggest questions most homeowners have to pick or farmers have to pick is natural gas versus propane. And if you Google it, there's no right or wrong answer to it, right? Natural gas and propane have pros and cons. But we gave them like build your own marketing campaign and marketing plan about would you use natural gas or propane? And if they can deliver a great marketing plan, deliver something by the timeline that we gave them, and can articulate the results, they usually are a really great hire because I'll know what they're like in that meeting and they come with certain skills. Obviously, I want to hire for character and train for skill, but I really think that kind of shows a lot as far as like who we're going to hire and who's going to come onto the team. So maybe like a micro task before they actually get the job.
Yeah, that's good. Awesome. And then Ty asked, how do you view outsourcing to see if that works for some areas of your business before bringing on a new employee?
Well, I can jump in again. Sorry, I don't mean to be the first, but again, that's where the agencies can come in to play with that. It's kind of like try before you buy. And so when you use an agency, first of all, we're saving you money because we do all the advertising, we're doing all the new hire stuff. We offer the benefits, we do all that, but try before you buy. And that's why a lot of companies use us. And another thing that we do, that companies use, we have a referral thing. So they walk into the door there, they apply. The company's like, I'm not really sure. They'll just send them straight to us and say, hey, Michelle, get this person started. I want to try them for a couple weeks. I want to try them for a month. I want to see if they're going to show up. I want to see if they're reliable. But that's, what I do. That's why we are so busy the way we are and our company is growing, is because all these companies are hiring people and then they're having high turnover, the person's not lasting. And that's where we come into play, where we take that all off their plate. We can screen them, we can do our best to make them a good fit. They can start. If they don't work out, we handle everything on that aspect so that they don't have to do anything. But outsourcing your hiring is, it is a really good idea, and it is cost effective for your company in so many ways. And besides the time that the HR people and the managers have spent on reviewing, advertising, going through applicants, and then making sure they're the right fit.
We're answering Ty's question, correct? I had to find that article.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, just for outsourcing, I think the simplest question you ask yourself is like, is this a long-term solution or a short-term solution? Is probably the biggest question I have. Is like, I mean, I always encourage like our operations team at Red Thread. I'm like, hey, if this is a short-term solution, let's outsource this, right? I mean, if we're not going to have permanent work in the let's say something like, let's say we have an animator in-house, right? But we only have one, like someone who animates like motion graphic videos. Let's say we get a bunch of projects, right? And that's kind of random for us. If that's a short-term issue, we're just going to outsource it. But if it's a long-term, like, hey, we're stacked for the next year, maybe it's a longer-term solution and build more of a permanent position in that role, if it all makes sense, like financially and with the capacity we need to pass off to that individual. Right. Like I always found, and I think one of the biggest takeaways I've learned just through hiring over the last 11 years is like hiring. I feel like a lot of businesses rely on gut feeling, where I think these can be truly, even from small businesses, can be more data backed than anything. Like truly just capacity and dollars in, dollars out. What does this mean for your business and your P&L and your bottom line?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I wrote down the URL for the getharvest.com so I could share it with share it with everyone too. So
Here, I can drop in the chat too.
perfect. So Michelle, if you were to give advice to just some small business owners when they're ready to start making their next or first hire, what advice would you give them in just this kind of interesting, tight labor market right now, when they're hiring to kind of, just get creative with getting the right people, but also making sure they, the employee will be interested.
Well, again, I am in the staffing agency business. I think it's, they should really rely on, people like us. And if they can't, but there's things that they can do on their own. They just need to make sure that they have a good culture at their work. They need to make sure that when they're they're interviewing people, that they're sitting down, asking the right question, and asking, why does it say that you're looking for work? What kind of culture do you want? What is it you're looking for a company? I mean, there's just important questions that need to be asked to these candidates to make sure that they're going to be a right fit for you. And I think screening is a huge process of that. Screening, checking references, just making sure, trying to see what their past jobs were, maybe calling them. It just, there's so much involved in screening. And, again, what we do, 8 hours a day, 8+ hours a day, that's all we're doing. And, we're talking to people, we're getting what they like, what they don't like, what kind of culture they like, why are they looking for a job today? But again, I think businesses just, they need to take that time. And sometimes it's hard to, because when you're really busy, you're overwhelmed. It's hard to do that. And it's great if someone walked in, they look great. They came in, they look great, they were dressed, they were proper, but when you see the resume, they may not have what you need on there. Again, you don't want to go off just the resume too. That's when you need to ask those questions like, hey, I see you have a gap, or what were you doing here? What have you done in the past? I mean, there's so many questions that need to be asked, and definitely definitely just, screening. And that's what I really tell people when I have, HRs in small businesses. I have friends that own businesses that always reach out to me. Michelle, I'm really struggling. I only need one person here. What can I do? And, and I tell them you just you got to screen, and you got to take time to get to know that applicant to make sure that they're the right fit.
Yeah. Kind of tailing off that, Adam, what kind of maybe like perks or benefits like did you maybe start out offering, or did you have to kind of build that up as you grew? And even Michelle, you could chime in if you've seen any kind of fun or unique benefits businesses have offered if they don't have, if they're not like a big company that can offer a whole lot.
Well, go ahead. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
No,
Go
you're good,
ahead.
Michelle. I was just gonna make a joke. I'm like, we offer. I mean, it's a joke, but also reality. I mean, I'm pretty sure at the beginning we were just like free beer, stock fridge. Like that was about as far as the benefits went. Would I advise that as our top benefit now? No. That's a real thing. But I mean, we just added stuff as it made financially sense. I was always transparent with some of our initial employees, saying like, hey, we don't have much to offer this time, but we're going to continue stacking. And I think we've tried to roll like a new kind of core benefit like every single year. So I mean, I'm joking about the beer side of things, but I mean, we went from like having a beer side of things, and then one of my original hires, she was pregnant, and I'm like, we don't have a maternity policy. We just don't have a handbook, right? So I mean, then we built the maternity benefit, right, where we pay about, I mean, I think most of our employees get 2 months paid, and then they can also stack PTO and sick leave on top of that. So, I mean, trying to get the full, usually 12 plus weeks paid. I'm not an expert on the maternity side of things, so please don't quote me exactly, but I'm doing the best I can on that front. But on the maternity leave side of things, we stacked. We obviously did vacation, um, sick time. We have you can use sick time for physical illness or mental health days if you need to. We also have like 401k matching. It went from a simple IRA to 401k. We added vision, dental. Um, I mean, right now, I think we're looking at offering pet insurance, right? That's a big thing for millennials and Gen Zs right now is I think that the US has more dogs in households than we've ever had. So, I mean, most people have a pet at some point. Read something about that the other week. And so I think just really, if you just Google like great company perks and benefits. I mean, there's so many creative ideas. I mean, you don't have to come up with your own truly original ones, but as it makes financial sense, you can start to stack those. And like literally every year, we try and just add something cool that the team can look forward to. That's good for retention for us.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. With associated staffing, one thing that that I love about associated staffing, what they do for us, for myself and the recruiters and the managers, our company, is they added a wellness program. And the wellness program has so many different things that do. They send us weekly emails or calls about different things we can do to keep our mental health and to keep healthy. We get to do team member events. We do a teamwork event. We get paid to volunteer, do things like that. And I always encourage companies, if you can't really afford the benefits, you can't really afford to give them what bigger companies are, that can do little things like the wellness, adding, fun things for you guys to do as a teamwork event, get everybody together and do a fun event. If it's just going out, going bowling, or it's going axe throwing, or just a wellness program. And I always say, and there's something that's involved with the community because that shows a lot of good culture. It makes it more of a family environment. And, a lot of people do want that versus having the benefits or versus having something else. It's just having a company that truly cares about somebody.
Yeah. Thank you. We have some more questions here. Nicole is asking, how do you know when hiring someone makes financial sense? And do you look at current profit or potential for the profit to increase? Adam, you kind of mentioned that.
Yeah. I think it's like a mix of both, right? Like I don't want you should never, in my opinion, right? And I obviously don't know what your P&L looks like. I never try and put the business at risk because and being an entrepreneur is risky, right? Running a business or even being higher up in a business is is you're kind of being part of a whole risk and being a part of a leadership team. Um, but I never want to like overhire to the point I'm like, yep, this is our last $5,000 that we're gonna invest for the next couple like month or two of salary, right? I mean, that's tough. Um, but if you can really see a path forward, and having someone have clear set goals, and if you build the business model to look future like forward for like potential revenue, I think you can make a really predictable, good idea. So obviously, Nicole, I don't know the full financial situation of kind of where things playing out for you, but if you say, hey, if I'm able to hire someone and they're able to generate 3x profit for me, usually that makes a ton of sense for that potential hire. But obviously, you need to see if that profit and fruition or everything's going to come to fruition. One of the things I've also noted too is I think a lot of industries have like best practices for what's employee cost to total revenue. And these are, I'm again not an expert in this, but this is just something I've seen. Like I see a lot of like more like retail experiences have like employee cost should be a third of the total revenue, like 33%. Another 33% should be the actual like overhead cost of like expenses, like can be like the actual product cost, the actual like keeping the lights on, all that stuff. And maybe you're shooting for like a 25 to 30% profit is a really healthy business, right? Whereas my world, an advertising agency world, we usually our employee costs and people costs are like 55 to 60% of our overall revenue, and our overhead costs is usually another like 20% or so. And so we're left with kind of that margin to potentially make our profit. So it varies by industry, but I've seen the advertising more corporate spaces. Obviously, sometimes the white collar business person costs are generally higher. So if you can kind of use those math calculations, just do quick math and also understand what's normalized for your industry, I think you make a lot of like smart hiring decisions accordingly there. So just know it varies in every industry. Take a look, and you can use Chat GPT to even probably even give you some prompts as well.
Michelle, do you have anything to add to the question?
Don't on that because where companies, when they're figuring that out, we have different departments in our company that handle that. So I'm usually at the last step we're coming in where they have figured out what their costs are, what they can afford. We have matched rates to help them be, and then I come into where I'm starting the recruiting and finding the people and doing the other part. So Adam had a lot of valid, great points on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then Ty put an interesting situation. So his daughter lives in New York, has been for 3 years, and she only had to like mention on the phone in an interview she was from Nebraska, and she was hired before they even met her. So that just a very interesting comment, Ty. So thank you for sharing that. But Michelle, Adam, if you were to give advice to a business when they're first hiring for new roles, what positions would you suggest they prioritize in their company as they're starting out like that?
Um, I was just gonna say, like, it largely depends on the industry, but I think someone who always is able to like help grow the business. I always think growing the business is probably a better place to start than servicing the business, but that's just personal opinion. Different industries, different situations could be totally wrong. So when I think about growing the business, right, and obviously there's some personal bias in here, but I think about the idea of like an outward facing business development person, right? A community manager. If you're running a coffee shop and you have people just go around like knock on local doors saying, "Hey, here's a 10% off coupon next time you come in." Like I want to make sure that you get to see what we have to offer, right? Shake as many hands as possible. Nebraska's the world's largest small town. I think just the entirety of it. And so the more you can go out there and start to drive people in, the more revenue you have coming, the easier it is to make other additional like operational hires too. So that's also personal bias. Obviously, I always want to encourage people to invest in marketing, whether it's like an individual internal marketing person or an external marketing agency. But I mean, something to help grow it really makes decision making a lot easier when you have too much revenue, because then you can start to build the staff to support that revenue.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah.
On that question, I apologize. I kind of lost you guys there for a minute. Were you asking what the first roles were, or what were you asking? Sorry.
Yeah, what would you suggest for small businesses to prioritize when they're first hiring for roles?
So what I would always suggest, I mean, what basically the basic question, what role is the most important? What role will move your business forward? What will make an impact? Always be ahead of the game. So those are the questions when we have small companies that reach out to us and are like, you know what, we have three employees. This is what we have coming in. What do we need to do? And that's the questions that we tell them. Okay, let's sit down. Let's go back to the basics. ABC. Like, what role is the most important? What role is going to move you forward? And I know they're really simple questions, but it really comes down to it is you just gotta just go through your A through Z and figure that out. And that's how we help companies. Okay, so what's your next step? What do you have going on the board? Okay, well, we need to look at a position for this. But really, it's just down to basics. Start and say, okay, what do I need to do next? And that's what we encourage in businesses to do.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you both. That's really good advice. Um, yeah. So when you guys are in the decision making for hiring, would you have a just kind of going back, would you change or did you learn anything when you were hiring just in as a new person hiring?
Are you talking about the actual like practice of hiring or like
Yeah, like if you could give I guess, let me reword that. If you could give advice to someone hiring that's new to it, what would you maybe tell them on like maybe a mistake or a situation you came across?
yeah, I think for being such a creative group and like really just I consider myself more of a creative individual rather than a logistics individual. I think that making it more black and white is always helpful for me. There's a great program, and I'm sure some of you may have heard of it, called Traction or EOS, which stands for the Entrepreneurship Operating System. I can again drop a link, EOS Traction, and what it talks about, it gives you the most black and white advice I've ever gotten about how to hire and how to fire. And so what I mean by that is you kind of measure an employee by three things. So it's we call it GWC. So it's do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity to do it? So usually a great hire is someone who checks all three boxes. They get it, they saying like they get the job, they understand what they're assigned to do, and they make it happen. Wants it means do they want to be there, right? I mean, it's just the choice of do they want to be employed. And capacity does not mean how much time they have. Do they truly have the mental fortitude to be successful at the job? And if that employee can check all three boxes, usually it's a pretty good hire. And you want to kind of measure that box on a weekly basis or a monthly basis to make sure they're the right fit for your career. So when somebody presented Traction and EOS to me, probably in 2017, that made hiring a lot easier because I could like it was less subjective and more so like, can I tick these boxes and say, are they the right fit for us?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Michelle, were you gonna jump in?
Yeah, I sure am. Sorry, I'm losing my connection here. I've hired over several hundred people over the last 20 years. So I've done tons of interviewing and hiring and terminating. Early on, my early recruiting years, the mistakes that I made is I felt bad for the person. They always had a sad story. And to me, I wanted to help everybody and make sure. So I learned real fast, in my early years staffing that doesn't work out for you. So obviously, I've had to change over the years, and I've helped companies realize that don't listen. The story is always heartfelt, and they break your heart, and it's always a reason, and you can't base it off that. And sometimes you want to, but that was always my mistake way back, and I'm talking 20 some years ago that I learned that really hard that I couldn't do that. But again, like Adam had said, black and white. It's just when you're interviewing somebody, you got to make sure that you're asking the right questions, and you got to make sure they're a good fit for your culture, and you got to really research, where were they working before? Why did they leave those positions before? If they weren't happy there, how are they going to be happy with you? And you can see a trend on some people. If they've left the job, just 3 different jobs and all the same reason, they're not going to be happy with you because they're going to leave you as soon as the next thing comes along. And so again, it's just, when you're interviewing, it's just really getting to know that person. Why now? Why today? What happened before? And really just, digging deep in that candidate to make sure they're a right fit. Because you don't want to hire someone and then you're like, oh, like, Lord, what did I just do? And it does happen. We still, to this day, I can grade someone, was great on paper. The references were good. They passed the interview. They were great. And then I sent them out and I'm like, oh my gosh, that did not work out well. But again, it's just digging in deep and really, really reviewing that candidate is what I would suggest.
Yeah.
I just want to say too, I mean, what Michelle just mentioned about the whole like finding someone who's the who usually left their last job or two on like good terms is usually like a good sign. I mean, I know it's an interview tip to not try and trash your previous employer, but I mean, it's a pretty tall tale sign if their last four jobs, this job sucked about this, that job did terrible there, can you believe this person did this? There's a pretty good chance they're just, and I hope I'm not super negative, they're just not the right fit. They're just not a happy person. And I promise you, as great as your employment base and career might be, they're probably just going to find a way to make that job miserable as well. So I think that's a really good indicator. And Michelle, I'm putting words in your mouth, but some of that effect, like they need to usually have some decent things to say about their previous employers. And it's okay if it doesn't work out. That's fine. But if everyone's terrible, I guarantee you're gonna be terrible too, whether they're having a good time or not.
Exactly. You are 100% on that.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. So, especially, yeah, I know we have members that, yeah, they ask us those questions. So, um, but kind of piggybacking off that, whoever would like to take the question first, but if you hired someone, and I know Michelle mentioned sometimes they look really good and then they get on the job and they just maybe aren't working out. How do you handle that, as, as the person that maybe has to have that conversation? And maybe what are steps that you give them to maybe potentially improve before you have to let go?
Well, I will jump in before I lose connection again. On that, and that's something a part of a staffing agency and being a recruiter is we have those frank conversations all day long, with all the companies and all that, the employees that we have. And when we sit down to talk to someone and they're not working out right now, we don't want to just, unless they've done something that we really can't recover from, but we try not to terminate people fast. We want to sit down. We want to have all the reasons, the feedback, the reviews on the team member. And we try to handle it with, we always handle it with honest communication. We like to give the feedback to them and explain to them, and we try to make it positive too. And it's not all negative, like, hey, this is what you're doing. We always say, you've done this part really well, but then we see that you're struggling here, or we see that you're not happy. And we like to ask them why, because we like to help our employees. We want to help them to grow, and we want to help them, to kind of change what's going on. And maybe there's something, and a lot of times we see that there might be something personally happening that's affecting their job, and maybe they need help with something. And so that's why, when we sit down to someone who's the team member's not really working out, and you're like, gosh, I'm at my next step of where I have to terminate you. We like to just give it one good final shot and like, hey, this is what, this is the feedback we're getting, this is why is this happening and what's going on.
Nope, we lost her.
Yes, she might have hit a bad spot.
So crispy for a second. Michelle, you still there? Okay, I'll jump in, Michelle.
Okay.
If you cut me off, that's fine too. I'll be the first to admit, like you've heard I feel like most people have heard the term hire slow or fire fast. I'll be the first to admit we suck at that. Like,
No, we just don't like to say, okay, you're done, you're terminated, you're out of here. We want to help them. And that's the thing is, just everything needs to be honest, and it needs to be black and white with them, and you got to help them to be able to solve the problems. And with what we do with associated staffing is someone's like, hey, I'm really struggling, I'm going through divorce at home, or I just maybe became homeless, or I had something happen, we can say, okay, well, here's some resources for you to reach out to get some help on that side. That'll help you. So that way, then, or maybe they need a car, their car broke down, or whatever the case is, that they can handle that, but that'll help them in turn get to work better. They have someone helping them on that side. So they're going to turn around and be able to go to work. They're going to, take that stress off them. So when they walk in that door, they're going to be more productive for you. So that's kind of how we handle it.
Thank you, Michelle. That's really good advice.
Do you want me to jump back in?
Yeah, Adam, if you wanted
Yeah.
to.
I mean, I was just saying, like, we suck at firing fast is probably the best way to describe it. Like, I mean, I'd be lying if I said, yeah, we're really good at firing people. Like, we're not, because we want to be compassionate, we want to be understanding. So Michelle probably has better advice than me on like making those quicker, snappier decisions. But I think the one thing I've always promised our employees is like, if you're going to be fired from the company, none of it should be a surprise, right? So we give people what I call like the three strike opportunity. Uh, issue one's a write up. Issue two is a performance improvement plan where we sit down and kind of go through like, you need to hit these metrics, and if you don't hit these metrics, like, then we're going to terminate you. And so I think that's the biggest thing for me is like, I got fired unexpectedly once, and that sucked, and I promise you I wouldn't do that to anyone else, right? So I think that's the biggest thing is like, you need to just make sure like, in these conversations stink to have a verbal warning, then a sit down with a write up that says, here's your performance improvement plan. We call it a PIP, and then a termination. But it's really a the right thing to do from a human side of things is just like, let someone know when they're screwing up. Because um great book recommendation I have is called Radical Candor. It talks about kind of the thesis of the book is like, if somebody's doing bad work and you're giving them false praise, you're hurting them almost more than anything else, right? I mean, it's the wrong thing to do. Just be like, yeah, you're doing great, and then unexpectedly fire them. It's just saying like, hey, your work's not up to par, or your performance isn't up to par. We need to have a conversation about it. And they might disagree with you. They might go off and quit. They might call you names, whatever. But I think it's the right humanistic side of things to do to tell someone that they're not hitting the mark, and here's why.
Yeah, no, that's good advice from both ends of it. So thank you guys so much. We have some questions here in the chat again. Nicole, this is a really great question. Would you suggest first making yourself an employee before hiring someone else?
First, make yourself an employee for hiring someone else.
So I think maybe like in the sense of like, should she be getting a paycheck first before she would hire full time or as the owner?
Um, I mean, usually as the owner, usually the last to eat, right? So I mean, if there's paychecks that go around, like, you're the last one to get paid, right? Because I mean, you have the obviously the equity in the business, but you need to pay the employees first. Um, if you're asking about kind of the more, there's like tax implications. Actually, I'm not a CPA, so please don't quote me on this, but there's like, if you become an S corp, talk to a local CPA about this. Please don't trust Adam. I have no like CPA advice. But if you become an S corp, you can actually designate yourself as an employee. Which, if you designate yourself an employee, you pay less taxes because you're basically just drawing an employee's salary, and then you get distributions on top of that. That's paraphrased again. Talk to CPA, but you can designate yourself as an employee if you become an S corp, and that saved us actually a ton of money on taxes over the years.
Perfect. Michelle, do you have any suggestions?
I am not a business owner, so I wouldn't really be able to answer that. But from like a standpoint of, being managers and a senior operation manager, if I was going to hire someone, I would make sure that I could do the job that I was hiring them for so that I could understand the struggles, the pains, the positives, the cons about it. So that way I could always be there to support that employee. So
Yeah, that's good too. Thank you guys. Jamie asked, how do you get out of just the habit of hiring out of desperation? She's in out of Western Nebraska, and so I know Adam, you kind of were touching on her situation a little bit.
I want to make sure I answer the question fully. Like, can you expand a little bit to Jamie in the chat, or I don't know if you even bring her in, but um, when you say desperation, like, are you talking about just because of lack of potential applicants, or more so just like we're too busy? That would help me kind of guide the answer, but I can start talking as you're typing. But I think when you look at like the applicant pool, I know in Western Nebraska it's a smaller market, right? Tanya, you're from Sutherland, right? There's how many people are in that town?
1,000.
1,000, right? Like a lot of those people, most of those people are gainfully employed. Um, I think that for me, one of the things that we've done is we might get 20 people applying, 5 say they're coming for an interview, 3 show up, I might hire one. Okay. So I think one of the things that you can do, and this is again from a marketing perspective, Michelle has a wonderful company obviously on her hands to help from like the staffing side of things, but this is from a marketing perspective is during like the years of like 2020 to 2023 when kind of the US was on their COVID high of like just dollars in people's bank accounts. Most businesses didn't need help with sales, they needed help with hiring people. So we worked with companies like Kawasaki, Allo, Lincoln Industries, LES, Duncan Aviation to put together what we call these recruitment marketing campaigns. So when I say that, like a lot of it was running social media and digital advertising, which I can get into more details of to be like that tell the story about how great of an place of employment some of these places might be. So for example, like Kawasaki, we built the campaign called We Built That, right? It was this idea of like Kawasaki builds these cool jet skis, ATVs, New York City subway cars, all these amazing products. And you can then also work on the assembly line to build these products too. And so we built this whole campaign to try and like build this like rapport going up there. And I also think you take that and translate that to like more of a micro scale, potentially in Western Nebraska, right? Like if you run a paid social media ad and talk about how great the job is, because most jobs do have benefits, and you start to gather applications online, get some excitement. I really think if you get that 20 people up to like 50 at scale, you should have more people to choose from. So really, I mean, I think there's a lot of advertising benefit to telling how great a job is, but also a great alternative option is the staffing side of things, right? Hiring someone to go headhunt and bring people to you and also help with staffing just on a day-to-day basis. So that's just from the marketing perspective.
Okay, I'll give my 2 cents on that from the staffing. Like, and he had great points in that. We get that question all the time from our clients. That's how we get new business daily, saying the same thing that you just had said. I have all these people, I picked 20 apply. I had 3 supposed to come in and they don't show up. We're out of the 5. We get that call constantly from clients all over Nebraska, and Kansas, areas. And that's where we come into play. We are there to screen those people, go through all those apps and make sure that they're going to show up and that they're the right fit and explain your culture. We'll even show them videos of the job. We're very detailed in that. So that's where you would use an agency who could help you take a lot of that time and that stress away from you, because that's what we do and that's all we do all day long. And if you're in Western Nebraska, and I don't know what agencies are out there, but we do staff quite a few companies in that area. But again, if you can find someone to help you with the hiring that has the time to screen, go through them, talk to them about the job in detail, do the screening questions, reference checks, that would definitely help you and hopefully get those employees to show up and for their interviews and be good employees and stay.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I do want to just put in a plug. I'll have Adam and Michelle's emails in there. So if you do want to learn more about Adam's company and Michelle's company, you can always reach out to them as well. Or if you have any kind of questions and follow up, I'm sure they would be happy to hear from you. But we are going to kind of start wrapping up here. I know Bridget, she is with Associated Staffing as well, and she just put, I think to add to one of Michelle's points is it's just important to know like your employees' strengths and capitalize on those from just when you're kind of having those tough conversations about if maybe their work isn't up to par. But as I'm getting the PowerPoint pulled up, I just want to end it with a fun question. Adam, Michelle, do you guys have one just non-traditional interview question that you love to ask, and why do you ask it? And maybe if you don't, if you have just a fun story about something too, so about hiring.
Well, we do have a couple I have a couple questions. And then I asked my recruiters this question too, because I'm like, we all interview different. But one that I've always asked throughout the years, and then I hear my recruiters asking is, one of the questions, one of our top recruiters always says, I see that you've been unemployed or you've left this job for this. Why today? Why was today the day you decided to come in and see us? Why is today the day that you want to work or you want a job? And that's a good one when you put someone on the spot like that and you're asking an honest question. And then they're like, oh, well, my mom made me come in. Oh, you know what? Maybe I, that's where you're going to really find and see, is that the person, the answer you get, it will surprise you. The answers that we get, they're just, sometimes you just have to giggle and sometimes you're like, holy cow. Another one's, what makes what's something that makes a big difference in your day? You know, and that's not a traditional question that you would ask an applicant when they come in. That's how we know what kind of culture they like. What's their yeses and nos and things like that. So, those are just some of the questions we ask, and we're pretty frank about it when we ask them. And exactly, why are you here today? What's different?
Yeah, no, I like those questions. Yeah, those definitely you'll get. I'm sure you've heard some interesting answers, Michelle. So,
Oh, we have over 20 years of staffing. There's all kinds of answers and reasons why. And it's just some of the stuff you shake your head and you're like, I just can't believe they said that. Yeah, so it's there's all kinds of stuff. And I wish I could just think of one, but they are so off the wall, half the stuff that we hear. It's just crazy.
yeah, I'm sure. Adam, do you have any non-traditional fun interview questions?
Yeah, I think the two that I think are really interesting is we always ask people like, and this is marketing specific, but we always say if you were a brand or a business, what brand or business would you be and why? And I feel like that gives people an opportunity to really think freely about like how they want themselves to be perceived. And I think it's really interesting because people pick brands that are loud and boisterous. They may be quiet and reserved. And I'm like, interesting. So, I mean, I feel like I learn a lot about them, about like what brand do you feel like you are, and are they self-aware enough to understand like what that really represents? And obviously, I want them to know marketing and be aware of kind of how brands gives themselves personalities and such too. And I think one of the most interesting things I found from like practical advice is like I always ask someone like, how do you feel like do you feel like you're appreciated, right? Like how do you feel like you really like what do you look for in a career? And I really think I'm trying to dive in to understand how to make this job offer and this job pitch if I'm trying to recruit them. Like, are they motivated by money? Are they motivated by time off? Are they motivated by recognition, right? I think that's been the most surprising thing to me over the last decade plus is how many vastly different things that people are motivated by. I always assumed it was more money oriented, and believe it or not, it's not. And so to understand like what people are actually intrinsically motivated by really kind of helps us set us up for success and understanding that individual.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. I like the marketing question. I'm gonna start asking people that now.
What's your answer, Tanya? Putting you on the spot.
Off the top of my head, I'd say The Road by Haley Bieber. Just because she definitely knows how to do the marketing. She soft launches products slowly where she builds up the anticipation. And so I just think that's yeah, I like following her just to see what she's doing. So
Nice.
yeah. So, but I'm gonna keep closing us out. If we have um if we have any other questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Um, but I'm gonna hit on our upcoming trainings. We do have some really good upcoming trainings for the rest of the year. We have one on August 14th. It's with just kind of talking more about building your brand, and the presenter has just a guide that he's going to go through and um, give you all the tools to continue to just like not just focus on a logo, but how do you continue to build your brand in your company. And then September 18th, we have Everyone Communicates and View Connect. And it's going to just be about, you know, communication definitely matters in all sense of team, customer service, and even just in your marketing. And so super excited about that. And then if you do have any questions or if you wanted to connect with Cami and I about Grow Nebraska, feel free to email us at member@grownebraska.org and we will we both watch that email, so you may hear from one or both of us, just depending. And so we definitely love to hear from our members as well as anyone that's looking to just get connected with resources or other businesses in Nebraska. But Adam, Michelle, thank you so much. I loved all the advice that you gave us, and we're very appreciative of you guys hopping on and just allowing people to ask questions about hiring.
Thank you, Tanya. Drop my email in chat.
Yes. Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.